Welcome to our meeting. Um, as we're just going to have our SO Gray start us off with the land acknowledgement, but we thank you for joining us this evening.
Sounds good. Thank you so much and welcome everyone. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the Near North District School Board serves communities located on the traditional territories of many Indigenous nations. We are grateful to live, learn, and work on the lands of the Anishinaabe, specifically the Nipissing, Wasauksing, Shawanaga, Magnetawan, Doquis, Henley Inlet, and Moose Deer Point First Nations, as well as the traditional territory of the Métis Nation of Ontario. This land is covered by several treaties, including the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850. Treaty agreements were intended to be based on mutual respect, peace, and friendship. We recognize the enduring presence and contributions of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples across Turtle Island. We commit ourselves to the ongoing work of reconciliation and to fostering respectful relationships with Indigenous communities across the West, East, and North regions of the Near North District School Board. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our shared responsibility to honor the land, the treaties, and the people who have cared for it since time immemorial. Miigwech.
I'm just wondering if Stephanie Bergman, our chair, is online. I know Stephanie is, her voice has gone a little bit, but I'm just wondering if you would like um, to start us off, but we would like to call to order the meeting starting at 6:06. Stephanie, are you there?
Just to confirm,
I
Stephanie
am
is,
here. I
oh,
just have no voice. It's
Okay,
difficult to talk.
okay. Okay, so Stephanie and I are, we worked on the agenda together and we've gone through. So Stephanie, if you would like, I would just speak on our behalf. Would that be okay? Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, Melanie, if you'd like to continue and welcome, that would be fantastic. I just did not want to acknowledge our chair.
Absolutely. We're so thankful you're here, Stephanie, and we're so sorry that you're not feeling well. Hopefully, it's short-lived. Um, but I'm very pleased to say good evening to everyone and welcome you here to the Parent Involvement Committee. It's a huge thank you to our parent school chairs, our principals, and our guests for joining us tonight. I want to extend a special thank you to Principal Cadillac and Executive Assistant Stephanie Norrie for their excellent organization, and also to all of our presenters. I've looked at the agenda and I'm really excited to spend this hour and a half with everyone as they share their time and expertise. So again, thank you to everyone who is present tonight and who hopefully will continue to be present throughout the year for your commitment to student success. It's truly, truly appreciated. So back to you.
Thank you, S.O. Gray. Really appreciate it. Just before we begin, what we would like to ask all of our participants is if you would mind marking in the chat whether you are a SAC chair, a parent participant, an administrator, a community representative, one of our teacher representatives, educators, or other. If you don't mind putting, we had a poll, but for some reason we're having some technical difficulty with our Zoom this evening. So if you don't mind doing that, it just allows us to keep track and to reach out to more participants if they were unable to make the meeting. So I appreciate that very much. Looking at the agenda, just to put a motion forward, our agenda, we would like to look at having number one, we would like to look at our minutes. We would like to revisit the nomination of a teacher representative as an elected member for our PIC committee. We have 3 presentations, one from Principal Samuel, one from Principal Walkling, and Lana St. Louis, our mental health lead, as well as Principal Lamoureux. We would also like to just quickly review the program, the application, and its dates. We would like to share the survey that many of you filled out around our topic of interest, and then just a quick discussion at the end, how we can support SAC in other schools and just upcoming events. So we would look for somebody to approve the agenda. Stephanie Bergman. Thank you. And is there anyone willing to second the agenda? Sarah, thank you very much for approving the agenda. Moving forward. Oh, all in favor. I apologize. All in favor? Stephanie, are you able to see all of the hands? I believe I believe we have the majority and the motion is carried. Thank you. We'd like to just revisit just quickly the minutes. They were sent out in the agenda, so we would like to approve the minutes. We do have, I believe we have quorum. So if we're taking a look at that, we need somebody to approve the minutes. I see Stephanie Bergman's hand up. Stephanie, Nori, are you able to see other hands? Are you able to see?
I can only see 3 at a time.
Okay.
So I'm just scrolling through.
Okay, thank you. And we need a seconder to approve the minutes. We have
John.
Thank you so much. And all in favor. I see a lot of hands up, so motion carried. Thank you so much. I love how they float. Okay. And then just moving forward, I'm cognizant of time because Principal Samuel has another commitment at 7. Just wanted to revisit nomination and election. Last time we were looking at a nomination for a teacher representative, and there were none at the moment. We just wanted to revisit to see if there would be anybody, any teacher representative that would like to be a voting member on the PIC committee. You can unmute yourself if you would like to. Okay, I don't see any takers, and that's okay. We can put it next time, or if you want to give it some thought, and we can maybe come back to it at the end of the meeting. Thank you. With any further ado, I'd like to introduce Principal Samuel.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, and thanks for inviting me to PIC. Are you able to hear me okay? Yes? Okay, great. So I've got a couple of items on the agenda to discuss, and the first one is in regards to Planet Youth Nipissing. So this is a community project that we, as the Near North District School Board and many other community agencies have gotten on board with to support, and that is run through our North Bay Parry Sound Health Unit. And so I also have with me tonight Nikki Hutchinson, who is our community health promoter from the health unit. And so with that partnership, and some of you from last year may recall, when I joined PIC, I spoke about Planet Youth. But Planet Youth Nipissing is based on an Icelandic prevention model. So it's a world-renowned approach to reducing alcohol and drug use among young people and to just help them improve their overall well-being. So Planet Youth works with various communities to address the root causes of early substance abuse and other high-risk behaviors. The approach aims to create healthy communities for children and youth with a focus on strengthening the protective factors. So those protective factors would be things like positive relationships with peers, more time with parents, the involvement in extracurricular activities, and high school engagement. So, using the Planet Youth approach, communities along the shore of Lake Nipissing have been working alongside the health unit to gain insights into how they might support these sort of protective factors. And if you were a part of PIC last year, you might recall I presented some data in regards to what we found. And how it works is grade 10 students from across the board are surveyed, and then we use those responses to help us determine what will our actions be. And then we survey again to see if we've had an impact. And so where we are in the cycle now, and I'm just actually going to put in the chat here the link to the Planet Youth Nipissing website. I would love it if people could take a look at this later on, put it in your favorites. There's a lot of great information in there, not only about Planet Youth itself, but that's also a place where you can find more information about the data that I was just talking about and some of those community initiatives that we're going to see. So last year when I was on joining PIC, I was chatting about things like data related to reducing some of those high-risk behaviors. What we saw was students who spend more time with their parents and caregivers are less likely to engage in those high-risk behaviors. And so we had chatted at PIC about how we might support that sort of community engagement, those extracurriculars, that are not necessarily the sports teams at schools, but rather something that's more grassroots in the community. Maybe it's something that's less organized, more like a drop-in, and so on. And this year, one of the areas of focus in conversations with PIC members, but also with administrators and with parents outside of this formal committee, we know that sleep as well as screen time are two major factors that parents are concerned about. We know that with the increase of an access to cell phones, for example, and other screens, lots of kids are turning to screens as their sort of primary form of entertainment, where ideally we would only be turning to screens as a tool to help us with learning and submitting projects and so on at school. So one of the things that we wanted to draw your attention to, and if you follow that Planet Youth Nipissing link there in the chat, you'll see that 45% of our teens are spending 3 hours a day or more on social media. And for some of them, it's quite a bit more. And so if you want to take a look at that stat, and you can dive into that a little bit more, but we know that time on social media, again, using it as an entertainment as opposed to a tool, time on social media can also result in lower self-confidence, lower self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. Students feel a sense of isolation, maybe loneliness, which, sometimes we think is counterintuitive because you're online and you're connecting with all these people. But really what the research finds is that those are not the kinds of connections that our brain needs, or that are, that it's good for us and our emotional well-being. And so thinking about reducing screen time last year, we had PIC support to bring in Catherine Martinko, who is a Canadian author, actually based out of Ontario, and she wrote the book Childhood Unplugged. So PIC did sponsor the purchasing of that book. It was handed out to SAC chairs last year, a copy to SAC chairs as well as to principals. And that's another book, I would say, if you haven't had a chance to read that yet, definitely do that. We invited Catherine to come up to Near North District School Board last spring, and she was able to meet with parents in the North region at an event at West Ferris, and then in the West region at an event at Parry Sound High. And I would say that there was lots of parents interested in how to support the reduction of screen time, because sometimes we're not really sure as parents how to go about doing that. And so her book, Childhood Unplugged, provides I would say, really applicable strategies that support parents in reducing or eliminating that screen time. And what I love about her book is it's divided out by developmentally appropriate age groups. So, if you're a parent of teens, there's no need to read through the toddler, infant, or, younger stages. You can just flip right to the chapter about teens. If you're a parent of a younger student, you can just flip to the parts that are pertinent to you. And so in that way, it's really user friendly. At those conversations, at those presentation nights with Catherine Martinko, we heard from parents they're still looking potentially for more. So that might be an area that PIC wants to explore. That could look like school-based initiatives to increase parent understanding of some of the downfalls of increased screen time with youth. It could look like, campaigns to increase student engagement, perhaps through events at your school or in your community. Again, to get them to put down the phone and engage with parents. That's a double win when we think about protective factors. So we thought we'd present that. And then the other piece that really stood out to us from the data is that 62% of the youth that were surveyed are getting less than 8 hours of sleep per night. So 62% are getting less than 8. And so when we think about how important sleep is to our overall health and our self-regulation and emotional well-being, and really our ability to come to school with that readiness to learn and engage in a positive way, we know that sleep plays a huge factor in that. And so again, we thought we would raise that here tonight for PIC, just like with the screens for discussion, for conversation, to see if perhaps you wanted to engage parents, potentially through a social media campaign, talking about the benefits of sleep, maybe highlighting some resources where they can go, if they are struggling to get their child to have the appropriate amount of sleep each night, looking at resources to support the building of a bedtime routine. I know people still laugh when we talk about bedtime routines with teens, but it's still really important. And I think, that goes hand in hand when we think about screen time as well, because we know that lots of kids do have their phones in their rooms. And so their sleep is being disrupted with notifications, their sleep, even if, for example, your phone is on mute, perhaps their phone is lighting up, and so on, and disrupting their sleep. So I think those two things go hand in hand. And what I'll do is I'll just pause there for a moment, just to allow for some conversation. And I know Principal Cadlick also has some thoughts. When her and I were in chatting about this, we really do see it as an area of need across all panels, for students from kindergarten through to grade 12. So I'll just pause there for a second and see if anybody has further comments or wants to engage in some discussion about, what the role of PIC might be in supporting parents in addressing these two areas of concern. And I'll just also invite Nikki Hutchinson if she wanted to make any comments about Planet Youth or about the data, or perhaps there's someone online who has a question about it.
Jillian has a question.
Sorry, it took me a while to find my hand up part. I don't think I know our chair was planning to be here, and we had talked a little bit about trying to run a school workshop that kind of ties these two pieces around lack of sleep or sleep hygiene to device use, because those are kind of the two things that we can do the part we can do at school, but how much sleep the kids are getting and access to devices outside of school is kind of the hard part. And so we were thinking that we tried to get parents out for sessions around, setting parameters around technology in the home and digital detox and all these things and modeling that. We didn't have the greatest turnout. So we thought this year we might try and approach like sleep hygiene strategies that we could maybe share. So anyway, I don't know if others, there might be other parent representatives on the line who have better ideas than that, but just thought I'd share that one.
I see Sarah's hand up.
Hi, sorry, I'm just getting my voice back. I was wondering if maybe placing a focus on early intervention or prevention in younger grades, because I've even noticed with multiple kids and my oldest going into high school next year that it really starts out really young, and I feel like a lot of parents, even sometimes myself included, don't understand how to bridge that gap between coming from home and school and how to um, engage with their kids in ways that aren't just screens. Because sometimes, you use a screen as a tool, but maybe having workshops for parents, maybe specifically on how to engage with your grade 5 when they're like, oh, mom, go away. I don't want to deal with you. And really build that trust, because once I feel like as they get older, they're going to want to do their own thing. So establishing those healthy boundaries and all those healthy interventions would be really helpful. Um, as they get older, kind of like squashing it, well, not squashing it, but dealing with it when they're a little bit younger, and then just managing those expectations as they get older, maybe. It's just my own perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah and Jillian, for both of those comments. I can definitely relate, Sarah. Like you said, there's sort of that stage where they don't want to play, but in the same breath, they're not out, out in the community with friends and so on. So you're right that that is a tricky age for sure. And I love the idea of doing some workshops and some ideas, some things that are ready to go, right? That parents, as you begin that, you and your child will come up with other things, but I like the idea of some stuff that's just ready to go and to try out. And Jillian, I really like that idea of sleep hygiene and kind of a bit of a different approach, especially with our older kids, because you're right. Sometimes when we start talking about reducing screen time, I think they tune out pretty quick. But you're right. If we could link it to that sleep hygiene, I think that would be great as well. Thank you.
I don't see any more hands, Emily.
Okay, the last thing I would add just on this topic, and again, this comes to us from our community health promoter, but I'm not sure if people have heard of the book Smartphone Nation. So Smartphone Nation is written by Dr. Caitlin Reinger, and its book covers as a candid, rigorous, and witty read on how to stop digital devices from wreaking havoc on our lives. And Caitlin is a social media and internet policy expert, and really gets into with this book really gets into sort of the why behind all of us find it so hard, kids and adults included, to put our phone down, and then what we can do about it, not only as individuals, but as families. And so I thought that that was brought to my attention today, like I said, by our community health promoter. And I thought that might be sort of interesting. And so, maybe there's a couple of folks on the line who wouldn't mind, if we ordered a couple of copies of that one and just had a small reading group just within PIC to kind of read that book and give some thoughts. I don't know if there's any people who would be interested, but certainly if you are interested in a copy of that, we could look at getting that to you and setting up a little bit of a group. You could put your name and your email in the chat and then look to see if that's a resource that would be useful to a broader audience. So we can start with a little guinea pig group, if you will. So yeah, if just your name and your email in the chat there, if that's of interest to you, and then Nikki and I will work to get that book to you. And thanks to the health unit for bringing that to our attention as well. Okay, so I've got the next agenda item as well. Oh, and Kyla, I turned off that screen. So what was the next agenda item?
We have a little bit of a conversation around our student senate and our
Oh,
representative.
yes. Yeah, thanks so much. So, I am very fortunate to be the principal that gets to oversee Student Senate. And I say it like that because these kids are self-starters who don't need a whole lot of adult input, that's for sure. But our Student Senate is made up of two students from each of our high schools um, who are there's an application process, and then they are selected by their administrators to attend. And then we meet monthly to hear about how school is going from a student perspective. Student Senate is committed to fostering leadership and augmenting student voice. That's really the purpose of it. And the students who put their names forward and then are selected are students who demonstrate a passion for governance and understanding governance and creating positive change, not only within their school, but also within their district and their greater communities. So the student trustee, for example, who sits on as part of the board, is elected through Student Senate, and they, like as I mentioned, attend those monthly board meetings, and they provide insight and participation in that professional board environment. The information that the student trustee brings forward comes from the student senators, so there is a teamwork there. But what I wanted to bring forward is, many of our senators would really love the opportunity to participate in a similar process. Um, you know, the, the opportunity, for example, to participate in a committee, see how things are done, get that agenda in advance, read any materials that go along with it, and see how a committee operates, putting forward motions, approving agendas, and things like that. And so that was an opportunity for growth that the senators had flagged for me this year. And so I am chatting with our committees where appropriate to see if you might want a student senate representative. Essentially, they'd be responsible, like I said, for reviewing the agenda and any associated materials in advance. They can participate in the conversation, and provide a student perspective when asked. Certainly, they wouldn't be like a voting member, but they could be available to the committee should you think that that's a good idea. And like I said, we can also shape that role for it to be as useful as we think it could be, not only for ourselves and understanding, students and their lived experiences within schools, but also to, share their perspectives on, what they think might support parents as well. So I did let them know I would bring it forward and just get some feedback to see if people would be open, if so, and in what capacity to a student rep on PIC. So thank you.
Do we have any conversation around that? Do we have any thoughts or ideas? Because if we like the idea, we could certainly put a motion forward. I don't even think we need a motion just to invite a student to our PIC committees meetings. I have somebody identifying in the chat that think it's a great idea for a student to participate in governance. Are there any other conversations? Can maybe we see a raise of hands if everybody is comfortable with having a student join our PIC committees? I think it's wonderful. Based on the hands that I see, Emily, I think it's a great idea. And I think working alongside of you in, shaping that role and, having that voice and, maybe parents have questions that can be answered by our student can maybe support us in a different way. So
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I'll take that back, and we meet again in a couple of weeks, and so I'll be able to share that opportunity, and we'll have a student with us next time we're all together. So thank you so much. And then my last agenda item, and this will be brief, I promise. I'm taking up a lot of your time here tonight. It's really just an awareness around a parent workshop that we have coming up. It's our Words Matter campaign. And essentially what that is, and some of you may have participated last year as well, but during the month of November, the Ministry of Education designates a week. It's always the third week in November for bullying awareness and prevention. And last year and this year, we're continuing with the theme of Call It Out and really helping our students to identify, racist language or discriminatory language and practices so that we can put an end to those practices in our schools so that people can come to school and feel safe and feel included. And so the parent workshop is going to be on November 20th. From 6:30 to 8. It is a virtual event. And I know that there is information that you've probably already received from your schools, the posters and so on, but I can also send this along to Stephanie perhaps, and then she could send it out with the to the whole email distribution list for PIC. But again, it's brought to us by Harmony Movement, and they are a wonderful institution to work with, and they will be providing us with, like I said, really applicable manners of helping our kids understand, what is harmful or what is discriminatory language, and how we can stop that. And we don't want that in our schools. So that is November 20th at 6:30. And like I said, if that's okay, Stephanie, I'll send that to you to share out with this group. So thank you so much for having me tonight. My next meeting's not until 7, Principal Cadlick, so I'll stay on until 7. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. I can tell you that Emily and I participated in a parent workshop last year with Harmony Movement, and it was, I don't know if we say it was well attended. There were quite a few people involved, but the parent conversation and the dialogue that happened within the workshop was quite amazing and enlightening. So it may be something that you're very interested in. I mean, I certainly would like to join again because every time we connect, we learn something new every time. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. I would like to introduce Principal Wackling, who is the K-12 Student Achievement and Wellbeing. Last meeting, Principal Wackling was unable to attend, but he did share some information with us that was shared in the last meeting. And we also have Lana St. Louis from the Mental Health Lead, and they are going to talk about the correlation of student attendance and student achievement. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. Kyla, if you could just confirm that my screen is being shared and you're able to see it.
Confirmed.
Thank you. And I'm going to go full size. You're good there? Awesome.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's great to be here with Lana. And as was shared, my name's Chris Wackling, and I'm a centrally assigned principal with responsibilities for student achievement and well-being. And we work quite closely with Lana St. Louis and Lisa Lamoureux as well when we talk about and explore the relationship between student attendance or participation in class time, well-being, and student success or achievement. So maybe I'll let Lana and Lisa introduce themselves, and then we'll dive into some of the information we're prepared to share.
Hi, everyone. As Chris was saying, I'm the mental health lead here at the school board, and part of my role is providing supervision to the attendance counselors. Those are the folks that support the students that have significant challenges with attending school with various barriers. And then I work with Chris and the rest of the team in looking at attendance from more of a systemic approach.
And good evening. My name is Lisa Lamoureux. I'm a assistant principal alongside Chris and Lana. I work closely with them. And in my portfolios, I have student well-being, equity, and Indigenous education. Thank you.
So the concept of looking back, moving forward, if we were to think about what's been named the Student Achievement Plan, which has replaced board improvement planning processes, this is a period in our school year where we engage in reflection, and it's expected that school boards across the province are reaching out to board level committees such as PIC, but beyond that, speaking with students, staff, parents, to fully understand how the system is performing and consider opportunities to work differently, ultimately to improve outcomes for students. But with the introduction of the Student Achievement Plan, it really identified 3 core priorities that all districts across the province would incorporate: the achievement of core learning outcomes or learning outcomes in core academic skills. So again, this is a real focus on literacy and mathematics, preparation of students for future success. So again, thinking deeply about how the learning that students experience in schools prepare them for life beyond school and into the workforce and adulthood. And student engagement and well-being, which is really, I think, the cornerstone of our conversation this evening. And within each priority, there are a number of indicators that boards are to use to ultimately measure their success in these areas. And in the case of student engagement and well-being, participation in class time, otherwise known as attendance, is one of the critical indicators that boards are expected to monitor and ultimately, again, to work responsively towards. As I mentioned, this concept of consultation, we would see ourselves very much in a consultation window right now. And again, engaging in conversations like we are this evening. We do have a few questions that we're hoping to ask of you later on once we work through some of the content that we're prepared to share. So participation in class, attendance. We have begun to frame this work as a focus on presence, participation, and potential. So again, moving from what we might historically have defined as absenteeism, but a real focus on how can we promote engagement and create the conditions that students want to be at school. Ultimately, the relationship here between attendance and achievement is an obvious one. Students with high absenteeism rates tend to have lower achievement in school. When we look at the demographic data, vulnerable populations are disproportionately affected when we look at chronic absenteeism. And engagement in school tends to decrease with poor attendance, further impacting achievement. Sorry, my presentation seems to have a mind of its own, so it's jumping ahead on me. I have to cycle back every once in a while. So how are we doing? And again, I think it's important to note that when we talk about any of the indicators in the Student Achievement Plan, these indicators are available publicly. They're posted to the board website, usually in April on an annual basis. But, I think all of us would say that certainly coming out of COVID, the world felt a little bit different. And I don't think schools are saying anything different. Again, when we look at, what we would look at the pre-COVID years, 2017, 18, 2018, 19, this is the percentage of students who are attending school at what the ministry has called the 90% benchmark. So that means they've attended 90% of instructional time or more. That's, again, grounded in research. It's evident through research that when students are absent for 10% or more time, there tends to be a negative impact on their achievement. During the COVID years, again, remote learning, attendance wasn't collected in the way that it was prior to. And then in 21-22, we started collecting attendance again. And I think, as you can see in this chart, you might look at these numbers and you'd probably say they're concerning. 21.8% of students in the grades 1 through 8 attending at 90% or more of instructional time. Slowly, that number started to increase. And as of 23-24, it was up to about 40%. Still, that leaves us asking the question, why are 60% of our elementary students not attending at benchmark? Again, I think it's important to acknowledge that the data that I'm sharing with you does include inclement weather days. So you're already starting to make connections to, why is that the case? It is important to acknowledge that our region has unique conditions that tend to impact this metric. So what would it look like across grades? Some people might ask, and I'll just give you a sense of what that looks like. The general trend here, this would be in the 23-24 school year, would be a general decline as students move into the late junior and intermediate grades. So again, this isn't this isn't this is again not the percentage rate or the attendance rate. It is the percentage of students who are attending at the 90% benchmark. When we look across the region, and I'm just trying to zoom in because I know some of those numbers are small and it's hard to see. We could say that, you know, across the province, 60% of students are attending at benchmark, but the North region and our district share common challenges, right? Similar contexts. So I do think that there are maybe opportunities for us to engage collaboratively with other boards when we think about how we might work intentionally to re-engage students and promote that concept of presence and participation. And to be honest, we have done that. We have reached out to neighbor boards like DSB1 to learn from some of their initiatives. Secondary students, again, we see a similar trend, and this shows, you know, sort of that spectrum of attendance. When we get into 22, 23, and 23, 24, you know, we see numbers that we would consider quite alarming. And it's a significant drop off from even that or first post-COVID year. And what's more striking in this particular chart is the numbers of students that are falling in that 0 to 79%. So this is a significant area of concern for our district. And we have been working quite intentionally to better understand the challenges that students are facing in attending and to work in response to those challenges. What does that work look like? I'll give you an example of some of the exercises that we've engaged in, but every school has a student achievement plan for at the school level, and student engagement and well-being is one of the key pillars or priorities that schools work to address. On October 20th of this year, so not too long ago, we asked teachers to share some of the practices or instructional approaches that they're using to encourage regular participation and engagement. And it was incredible to see how teachers have really considered deeply the challenge of attendance and are working very intentionally in response to what they know about their students and what they're learning from families. So some of these strategies look like attendance tracking and early intervention. So again, monitoring closely students who have demonstrated chronic absenteeism and using communication outreach to families that's differentiated and personalized. Personalized support for at-risk students, so regular check-ins if we know that students may be vulnerable to chronic absenteeism or have associated risk factors. Mental health and well-being supports, recognizing the impacts of anxiety or potentially workload challenges that prevent students from attending with regularity. As part of this working group, teachers identified even some of the stressors like allowing assignments to accumulate. And how does that present to students on that day one back, the return to school? And how can we start to mitigate maybe some of those stressors that may increase anxiety and prevent students from feeling good about coming back into the school setting? Some classrooms are using gamification and incentives. Personalized support for at-risk students. I've covered that one. Building positive relationships and classroom culture, family and community engagement, and collaboration and professional learning. Again, as we become more familiar with this challenge and we talk more about attendance, collectively, we're learning about evidence-based approaches to support engagement. Even the shift in concept from a focus on absenteeism and almost that punitive lens to a more positive approach through the lens of engagement, again, promoting participation and potential in school. January of last year, we engaged in a leadership roundtable, and this included principals from a whole range of schools across our system in all regions. And they came together to talk about this very challenge, thinking about student engagement, well-being, mental health, and that included attendance. And principals too shared some of the key themes in their work, as well as best practices. but a real focus on fostering teacher and student relationships. Again, talking about that personalized supports, questions and conversations around what does the welcome back look like when a student has been away? Is it, oh, Johnny, where have you been? Or is it we're so glad to see you. We want you here. And again, building that as a culture amongst staff. Again, that promoting presence and participation versus the focus on absenteeism. Simplifying curriculum or reducing engagement barriers. Even a conversation around how the use of EDSB and, like a zero placeholder, when a student logs into EDSB and they see a whole pile of zeros, how does that impact their sense of efficacy and ability to walk back into the class in a good space? And then how might our practices evolve so that when students are doing check-ins, that doesn't necessarily present as the impossible mountain to climb. Supporting staff and using data. Again, developing tools that help us identify chronic absenteeism early and align resources that Lana will speak to in response to those challenges. And then creating environments that support diverse identities, implement resilience, and promote mental health programs for students. We also talk to students about this challenge. I mean, who knows better about the challenges or the barriers to attendance than the students themselves? This is a photograph from a student engagement in June of 2025. And I will say, if you want to see an exciting task, you think, principals and senior team administrators are excited about improvement planning processes. I can't say enough about how enthusiastic students embrace an opportunity to talk about the challenges that our system faces and provide solutions. So this particular group was the Indigenous Youth Circle, representing Indigenous youth leaders from schools across our system. When we talked about attendance, it was interesting because they said you're missing a few pieces here when you're looking at the data. Like, the numbers don't tell the full story. You need to recognize that sometimes we are away from school, but we're not away from learning. We might be engaged in cultural activities, but there's an incredible amount of traditional knowledge, experiential learning that's happening through these experiences. And their question was almost a challenge to us, like, how can we work with teachers to acknowledge the learning that might be happening beyond the walls and map that back to the expectations that sit in the curriculum? And it was a really, it was a powerful statement and a powerful ask, because if the measure itself is really to orient us to concerns around learning loss, students not accessing school, not accessing learning, so to speak, what these students were saying is that it might not be that learning isn't happening. So how can we build connections or bridges between what we're doing outside of the school to the expectations that sit in the curriculum? Powerful concept. And since that time, we have engaged in several curriculum development projects to support that very task. And lastly, in terms of how we are responding to this, again, a lot of gathering of information, and then again, trying to move more intentionally in response to what we now know. As recently as today, we shared an inclement weather procedure. It's an updated procedure with all school administrators. We had taken input from the federations, teacher federations, as well as administrators and managers across the system. But to implement a common approach to continuity of learning when there is inclement weather. So this procedure asks that instruction continues whether students are at school or learning from home. So there's an expectation that the learning continues. That educators provide or develop routines and resources for at-home learning, including paper-based and or online options. So this idea that every day we are using tools like Knowledge Hook and Dreambox, and students are engaging in activities and again, orienting students to opportunities that they have during inclement weather days to learn, whether they're at school or at home. And then in-class learning, again, a focus on a continuation of learning, but maximizing opportunities for differentiated learning, small group, and again, acknowledging that evaluations assessment of learning or evaluations, tests wouldn't occur on an inclement weather day, as many students might not be there. But formative assessment, feedback, skill building activities certainly can. And it's a great opportunity to do that almost on a one-on-one basis. And then really promoting at-home learning platforms such as EDSB, the learning management system, and other ministry or board approved resources, so that families know that these tools are available to them, that teachers are orienting students to these as part of the inclement weather strategy. And ultimately, we might not be able to change the climate that we live in, but the routines and habits and the belief that we can continue to learn even if we're away from school that day, has at least been shared in concept, and we can grow a culture over the next few months as we enter the winter months. I'll turn it over to Lana to talk maybe a little bit about some of the supports that you put in place. And then I'd like to finish maybe with a bit of a conversation around 2 questions that we've prepared to share with parents tonight.
So our department, part of our role is helping schools to create those conditions that are welcoming and inclusive environments that make children want to come and engage in school. We have a team of 28 mental health professionals in various different roles that support the schools. The support can look anywhere from individual counseling support, addressing things like anxiety, or small groups in which children are learning social emotional skills, so how to make friends, how to take turns, play games, or manage their emotions. As well as we do classroom programming with the teacher, where we support the development of social emotional skills, but as well as the development of like a community culture that is positive and welcoming. So we do that work hand in hand with teachers. Our attendance counselors, they take referrals for students who are having significant attendance concerns. And their job is to work with the family and the student and community to help identify what the barriers are, and then to collaborate together to meet these needs. So if a student is experiencing significant mental health, how do we navigate supports in the community so that that child can receive the treatment that they need? If there are medical concerns, how do we help support with medical? Or if there are things going on at school where they're struggling to make friends, how can we support them in developing those skills? Parents who are looking for support for their child for anything that is impacting on their success at school, because our focus as a school is to work on those challenges. If it's something that is primarily home-based, that's not where our training or focus is, we would help support you to navigate community services for that. But you can reach out to your teacher, to your VP, to your principal, and they'll help connect you with us, either directly or by submitting a requisition for a consultation with our team so that we can help figure out how to support your child. And that is what we do in a nutshell. If you have any questions about anything to do with our mental health supports, I am here for you.
Thanks so much, Lana. I think it goes without saying that student engagement, particularly when we talk about promoting regular attendance, is a challenge that we're currently engaged in, but we recognize we don't have all of the answers. This is clearly a situation where we need to work in partnership with families in the community to better understand some of the challenges, even on a regional level, because the challenges in the West Region, Parry Sound, and North Bay may look similar or different depending on. So I'd really welcome and invite input from this group, thinking about how we could strengthen partnerships between families, schools, and community organizations to reduce barriers to attendance. Thinking, yourself reflectively as to what you think those might look and sound like. And then, recognizing the strength of this committee and this group, what role might parents play in shaping a culture that values consistent attendance and engagement? So I leave those as a provocation and welcome input or questions around anything that we've shared to this point.
Does anybody want to give it a go or want to share an idea or a thought just to get us thinking and to help us brainstorm as we leave these questions with you? Sarah?
Hi, so I was wondering, with the inclement weather days, they have the option of the paper and the online to do at home. What if that could also be kind of a hybrid model where if there is a barrier, like at my kids' school at Woodland, over 90% of the kids are bused. When it is a snow day, my kids go to school and they say there was 3 people in my class. So clearly, if transportation is an issue for some families, could there be a hybrid model where they can still have those online or paper-based resources, even if it isn't an inclement weather day, and then have some sort of work with some sort of program to integrate them back to that 90% or more attendance so it's not as overwhelming, and then that might help with the mental health part, and then having some sort of program that way, maybe.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sarah. I think certainly building, and I mean, a key piece in the inclement weather strategy is to communicate routines to families so that they know where resources will exist, and and again with consistency, even in advance. We don't need to wait till there's a snow day to know where we can go to access resources. So I think one of the first pieces is really promoting awareness to the resources that do exist, and then ensuring that there's merit and curriculum connections to those. So when the student or connected to the learning that students are doing each and every day, not something that sort of falls from the sky as a to-do item because it's inclement weather, or vice versa. When a teacher has 2 or 3 students in the class, how does it become an opportunity to go deeper, to differentiate, and provide potentially personalized learning? With regards to like a hybrid synchronous concept, again, I think those are interesting ideas, and I certainly appreciate you sharing them. Stephanie has her hand up too.
So just bear with me, my voice is still hanging on. My kids are very little, so I love the idea of a hybrid or, an online or virtual component when they're older. But I also just want to know, like, my kids will have higher absences throughout their educational careers because of their identities. So we will miss some school to celebrate Jewish holidays because those aren't stats. We will miss some school to participate in Métis and Indigenous cultural camps and activities because that's also part of their identity. And I think that in some circumstances and cases, there are instances where there might be absence that would be considered like more under an approved category. But what are the resources as a parent that like I can use to leverage and connect some of those back to curriculum? Like how can that still be a part of the kiddo's educational journey and experience, even if and when that's not taking place in school? And then beyond that, one of the discussions, Principal Cadlick, you can speak to it as well, that we had this week at our SAC meeting was around how do we build a community and a space that parents and guardians see themselves as part of that broader school community so that they view themselves as being supportive to that experience as a tool to improve attendance, improve student well-being, and improve the kiddos like pride in being there, right? Because it's like my parent, my guardian, the people that love and care about me are here, and they're part of making this a really cool experience for me. It's like, how are we building that pride early so that it can carry them through their educational journeys? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for persevering and sharing that question and those ideas. Yeah. There's so many wonderful ideas in what you're saying. It allows me to draw connections to some of the work that we're doing this year with the curriculum development work. And again, this is in response to some of the feedback we received from the Indigenous Youth Circle in June. and acknowledging the learning that occurs through some of the cultural activities that they experience, and supporting teachers in mapping what the student experience is in however they want choose to reflect that or represent that to the expectations in the curriculum. And I think historically we're very comfortable with contextualizing learning, but what this asks us to do is shift our methodologies, right? It's shift practice around assessment and what assessment looks like, the kinds of products, a shift to observations, conversations. So there's a lot of learning in I think what you're proposing and the work that we're currently engaged in. But I certainly appreciate and hear what you're saying, and agree with you wholeheartedly that this is the work that we've begun to do, and would welcome to opportunities to continue this conversation with you, because it's a pretty exciting place, I think, and a
I would
rethink.
love that. I'll also note that like one of the things that's been really successful for us at Alliance, and part of like bringing, I only have one kid in school so far, they're little, they're 1 and 5, and bringing kind of that her identity into the classroom and seeing her whole self reflected at school has been like how Alliance has like welcomed us in to share some of those practices where our daughter might be like the one and only kiddo at the school that celebrates certain holidays. So like that there's been space for us to bring that connection into the classroom so that she can celebrate that with her peers, and also like just see her whole self there and see her whole self be welcomed. And that has been also just so valuable from an attendance perspective, because then she doesn't feel like she's missing out on these cultural connections by being at school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Lana. Thank you, Chris. I know, Lisa, I'm going to thank you as well, because I know you're going to go into your update in a second. Really appreciate your thoughts and ideas. I know that they're working diligently, but we are going to connect because one of our agendas, our goals is to talk about resources, curriculum resources, and materials that may support a lot of parents in the February meeting. So thank you very much for sharing. We're going to connect again. So
If I may, before we move on, there was a question that was asked in the chat.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, so what I would say is that yes, there are, but when we see to describe success in this way, it's often very personalized and at the student level. I think the shift has been from like a broad-based understanding to the recognition that much of this work needs to be done at the student level in response to the unique challenges that a student might face. And I think that alone is the shift that has made the greatest impact, is recognizing the unique needs of students and supporting them accordingly. Lana, you might have some thoughts to share as well.
I would agree with you on that. We see our success supporting those individual students. I know that over the years, different schools have identified this as a goal for them, and they have created different attendance programs that have had success. But as to identify exactly which ones and what the specific data said about their success, I couldn't gather that out of my brain at this moment.
And just to one last thought around that, I think these working groups have come together really over the last year, and I think we're at the point now where schools have identified actions that they're starting to implement. We'll probably be able to better answer that question a few months from now, as we start to gather term data and so forth. So yeah, I'd welcome an opportunity to follow up on that one too.
We're so fortunate to have such great leaders here in the Near North District School Board. So thank you so much. Just being cognizant of time, I'd like to give Lisa the opportunity to provide an update. Go ahead, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyla. And I'll try to keep it brief because I know there's many other items still left on the agenda. But as Kyla shared, I'm bringing forward updates from student well-being, equity, and Indigenous education this evening. So I'll start with the student well-being. As Lana and I shared at the last PIC meeting on September 24th, we launched a new program this year with all of our schools now having teacher well-being champions from K to 12, and then also having student well-being champions in our secondary schools. So since our last PIC meeting, we have had our PD sessions, both with the student well-being champions and the teacher champions. And that took place. The students were on September 30th at Almaguin. We had a really wonderful day with our student well-being champions where we were planning activities and events and groups for the remainder of the year, as well as delivering PD to them on mental health supports and resources. And then we had our teachers come together in South River on October 1st, and we had teachers from K to 12 there and delivered a PD session on mental health resources and supports as well. And they had some planning time together as well to plan to support initiatives in their schools. And what was really nice from that session is that the teachers shared that they're not only focusing on the well-being of students and families, but also on the staff as well. So that was really nice to hear. So just, focusing on the well-being of everyone at the school. And then for equity, our equity update, I do want to share that we had our first equity advisory circle last Wednesday. We come together 4 times a year. So we had our first circle last Wednesday. During that circle, we did review the terms of reference with all members. We do that annually every year in November. And then we also received updates from all the equity work that is taking place and student well-being work that's taking place throughout the board. And of course, all of our community partners shared updates as well. And we have wonderful partnerships with CAS, Canadore, the health unit. Nikki is on here as well, I know right now. And also from all of our board committees. And we also have the drop in Parry Sound. And I know I probably missed a few, but we have many different, the Multicultural Center as well. So they provide updates as well on the work that they're doing. And then we always end the Equity Advisory Circle with an activity. And the activity this last week focused on goal setting for student well-being for the remainder of the year. So it was really nice to hear from all of our different community partners on their goals for student well-being. We're also working with the Multicultural Center right now on planning an event for the elimination of discrimination and racism, which takes place in March. So we start planning early with the Multicultural Center alongside Canadore, Nipissing, and all of our other local school boards. And we are going to be bringing in a guest speaker this year that is going to be focusing on anti-racism. And we're excited to have that with staff this year, and also hoping to have a session for parents as well. So we're going to continue with that planning, and I'll keep you posted because we will be promoting that event as well. And for our Indigenous education, there's lots of wonderful work that is happening, and the Indigenous education team continues to celebrate and promote culturally responsive practices and system-wide awareness of Indigenous knowledge and contributions, as Principal Walkling shared earlier as well. But I don't have time to share all of the work that's happening in the Indigenous Education Department, but I'll share a few key highlights. The students have been engaged in lots of land-based learning opportunities, and they had a session at West Ferris, and I know Jillian's on here last week. It was really exciting. I got to attend that as well, and it was a hide scraping workshop for 2 days with grade 7 and 8 students, and they brought in students from other classes as well. It was a wonderful opportunity just to incorporate so many different students, and we also had our shop students that were helping out as well. And outdoor ed was happening as well. So we had a lot of connections to that opportunity. And last week, there was also a professional development session for our Ojibwe language teachers. And that was an excellent a day of learning for them as well. They've come together quite a few times already this year for different professional development for the Indigenous language teachers. And of course, our Indigenous Youth Circle has come together twice so far. They meet monthly, and as Chris was already sharing feedback from them from their retreat in June, they do come together every month, and they did come together at Almaguin in October. and they were working on activities for Treaty Week. They were also working on the Walk for Wenjack in October. And at our next meeting, which will be taking place next week, they will be planning which charity organization they're going to be focusing on for this year for the Indigenous Youth Circle campaign that gives back. So there's lots of wonderful work that the students are doing at the Indigenous Youth Circle always, and it's really wonderful to be able to capture that student voice when it comes to any type of feedback from them. And I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I think I probably did, but I know that there's many more items on the agenda. So let me know if there's any questions, because I know I shared a lot of information. So if there's any questions when it comes to the student well-being, equity, or Indigenous education updates, feel free to put forward any questions.
Yeah, we have a couple of minutes if you have any questions for Lisa, for Principal Lemuter.
One more update I just wanted to share too is that on Friday we do have a PD day, and it is for our secondary teachers, and we do have a keynote speaker by the name of Randy Ray that is coming, and she's going to be doing a presentation on understanding anti-Indigenous racism as well.
Are there any questions for Principal Lemuter? Okay, I don't see any hands up. We'll just check the chat. We have one comment says it looks amazing. I heard such great things about it, and that's when you were talking about some of the work that you were doing. So thank you. Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing again, just another testament to the wonderful things that happen here in the Near North District School Board. So thank you so much. We have about 15 minutes. We have some things on the agenda, but I think we'll be able to make sure that we're within our timeline. I just wanted to move on to the pro grant, a pro grant update. I'm sure that many of you are aware that the pro grant application for the first round was sent out by Stephanie Norrie back on November 1st, and it will be closing at the end of November. And I just wanted to chat a little bit about what the pro grant is. So money is received from the ministry to be able to support projects and initiatives which will help remove any barriers at the local level that prevent parents from participating and engaging fully with their children. So the funding allows parents to be able to, or the SAC committees, to engage in certain projects within their school or within their community to be able to support their learning and to support in turn to support their children's academic and well-being. So if we're looking at priorities for these initiatives or these projects, one of the priorities is certainly addressing social inclusion and racism, specifically anti-Asian, anti-Black, and anti-Indigenous discrimination, and bias and other prejudice towards racialized and marginalized groups, as well as inequities and systemic barriers faced by these designated groups. So if you're thinking about a project in that area or in that topic, you may want to consider reaching out or applying for a pro grant. There's creating a safe and welcome environment, demonstrating respect for parents as valued partners within the education system regarding decisions about their child's education. Other priorities, certainly enhancing communication with teachers, informing parents about the expectations of the Ontario curriculum and supporting resources. Certainly some of the conversations we've had around screen time, cell phone usage, also vaping and smoking. Other priorities around, collaboration involving having 2 schools or 3 schools connecting together and working together to be able to support not only their school, but the school community. So those are some of the ideas and priorities that you may want to consider. Other samples that schools have done they have engaged in literacy nights or math nights or health and wellness well-being nights. They engage a lot of families in different types of activity. Again, working collaboration is key, and really other activities is having parents engage in activities, working alongside their children and building those relationships. So those are some examples. We certainly do not fund the purchasing of school materials, computers, or resources by any means. And also, we don't use any funds to pay for school board staff or volunteers, including salary or honorarium and gifts. But we do welcome presenters in the school. We do welcome all kinds of initiatives. So if you are interested, we have 2 rounds. We have the first round that has gone out. The application ends, it closes November 28th. We have a second round whereby the application, you'll be able to apply as of January 9th, and then it will close at the end of January. We have closing date February 13th, at which time, after each round closes, we will connect with our pro-grant subcommittee, and we will look at all of the applications, and we will review your projects, your initiatives. We'll also review the amount of funding that you may be looking for and how we best can support your initiative. Are there any questions around the pro-grant applications or around deadlines? No? Okay. Well, please, if you haven't seen the application, please look for it, and you may want to consider and brainstorm with your SAC committees. You may want to consider thoughts and ideas, and you may want to put your application forward. If not this round, certainly the second round. And based on some of the conversations that have happened today, there may be some great ideas and projects that are ruminating in your thoughts that you may want to bring forward to your SAC committees. In terms of new business, we just wanted to talk quickly about the topic of the survey that was sent out regarding interest in what you were hoping to receive out of the PIC committee meetings and some of the presentations that you are looking at. So just quickly, the analysis reveals that most valued topics for PIC meetings are mental health in schools, parent resources, and resources for IEPs and or understanding different types of behaviors. The other part is these priorities certainly suggest a strong interest in supporting students' well-being and providing parents with tools to supplement education. While fundraising and financial literacy were certainly mentioned, they are less prominent compared to the well-being and education support themes that have been raised through our survey. This indicates that initiatives focused on mental health and family and well-being and inclusive education may resonate most with our committee within our community and could guide future efforts to enhance our learning and perhaps in our SAC committee meetings with our individual schools and or working and networking with communities within schools, combining their efforts and projects together. Are there any questions and thoughts around the survey or the topics of interest? I do want to thank Chair Bergman for connecting with me around creating and looking at the agenda and really considering our presenters. And we are certainly looking into these topics. As you know, we have started to address some of your questions or interests in today's meeting based on some of the shared ideas you sent or you shared back in September. So we will continue to do that. We have maybe 5 minutes before we end our evening. There was just a discussion. We wanted to open the floor and have a discussion around what types of supports would school SAC committees like to receive from the PIC committee, from the PIC committee. So as a SAC chair or as administrators, how can we best support your initiatives in your schools or your projects that you're working with several other schools? How can we support? What may that look like? What might that feel like? We're just looking for thoughts and ideas and or how we can best help. Anybody have any thoughts or ideas? Do you want to you can unmute yourself and you can just share.
I'll just share a few of my own. So this is my second year on SAC. It's also my second year with a kiddo in school. So it's all very, very fresh to me, and I have no clue what I'm doing. So one of the things that was really helpful through PIC was being able to hear last year about what other SAC committees were doing, how were parents engaging at those, what were some of the best practices. Like when the program came up, I had no clue what to put. Luckily, I had Principal Cadlick, but hearing what other initiatives had been successful was just so helpful in terms of like building a best practice. Last year as well, our SAC was fresh and new. Not a whole lot of people who had done it before. So getting those best practices from other schools was really, really key and crucial. We're still quite fresh in terms of a SAC committee again. But being able to hear those ideas, hear what's working instead of feeling like you're starting something net new and kind of operating solo within a school. I think PIC being the space to share those ideas, inspire new ideas, and also to highlight what's been really successful is key.
Thank you, Stephanie. Sarah, I see your hand is up.
So from the SAC committee that I'm on at Woodland, there are 3 people on our committee, and this is my 4th year on the committee, and the numbers just keep dwindling. One of the biggest things I feel is understanding that there is a PIC committee, because until this year, until I got an email from Stephanie and Tammy Melnick saying, hey, here's an email, you're going to the meeting, I had no idea there was a PIC meeting. So maybe some sort of collaboration between the PIC committee and the individual SAC committees, and understanding that, hey, there are these resources, knowing what other schools can do, being able to collaborate with other schools would really, really be helpful, because otherwise it feels like we're kind of these small fry committees, and we're like trying to make our kids the best experience ever, and not understanding that there is other resources on top of our already, tapped out, overworked principals, right? So maybe just understanding with each committee that the PIC committee exists, and having some sort of document to highlight what we can access, if there's any, the pro grant, maybe a little write up on how to best apply for that, and just kind of really hold our hands, I guess, as to until we understand exactly what the PIC committee is, especially for those members who aren't on the PIC committee, but still want to have their voice and do it properly and get the best or the most that they can out of being on the SAC.
Thank you. Thank you.
In the chat, Chantel said backing fundraiser.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, sure. In the chat, I see that Chantel has written backing fundraiser.
So how to support fundraiser. That was one of the topics that came up as a topic of interest, is fundraising ideas and how to support that. So I do have that listed, and we can certainly, I think that comes across from what Sarah said as well is understanding, what we can do to support and, and same with Chair Bergman was identifying, really looking at understanding what other SAC committees are doing, and perhaps we have a small portion, a few minutes where a committee or a SAC committee can share some of their initiatives or their projects or, a couple of ideas quickly there, and that may support as well. Okay. Okay, I'm really cognizant of time. If you want to take that thought with you and contemplate, have that conversation in your SAC committees and how best we can support and what you need from the PIC committee, please have those conversations. We're here to support. Anything that we do here, you can always bring into your SAC committee meetings. As well as don't hesitate to reach out. We have myself, you have my email, and we have Chair Bergman also. So if you have any agenda items that you wish to share, any thoughts or questions you would like us to bring up, any presentations, if you're working on initiatives and projects through your pro-grant application, please reach out. We can certainly support you with that. And I just wanted to identify just upcoming events. As you know, that SAC, the pro-grant is going to, the application is closing at the end of the month, but we do need to meet with our pro-grant subcommittee. We are looking at between the first and the third week of December. So if you want to take a look at your calendars, I am going to connect with S.O. Gray. We want to make sure that she is probably the busiest of us all, and we want to make sure that her calendar allows for a little bit of time where we can connect as a committee. And then we're looking at in February, between the 2nd and the 4th week of February as well. So I will make sure that S.O. Gray is able to look at her calendar and we can select a couple of dates so that we could sort of gather and review the grant applications. And then we would certainly share that during our next meetings. Any other thoughts or before we adjourn? We really would like to thank every one of you for joining us this evening. If you know other SAC chairs or there are parents that wish to join, they're always welcome to join. We will continue to send out the information to your administrators and we will ask them to share that with SAC chairs. Please make sure that we are getting the word out. I think it's really important. There's a lot of great leaders that are able to share and provide us with a wealth of knowledge and understanding, and they have a lot of experience. So I want to thank everybody, and I absolutely want to thank a few people. I want to thank Chair Bergman for connecting with us and helping me with the agenda. And I know her voice was not here. So next time you'll hear her chat a little bit more and me less so. I'd like to thank certainly Stephanie Norrie, who's been the backbone of getting out the emails and meeting with me and trying to get my agenda going and upright and sending out surveys. And she has been a true support here. And certainly S.O. Gray is always there to support. And it's been a real pleasure working alongside these wonderful people. So I want to thank you. And with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. And it is, what time is it now? 7:31. So thank you, everyone. And please don't hesitate to send us agenda items to myself and Chairman Bergman. Thank you. Have a great evening.